If we can grab a seat, we'll get going in about 2 minutes.
It's on right now. We're doing have you ever seen Sound of Music?
Yes, of course.
Exactly.
Yes,
We're just
right.
gonna climb over the stage here. That's the mountain. Exactly.
Kind of a cheap knockoff, though, because I don't think we're able to say like that.
All right, well, we're going to get going. We've got a lot to cover in one night, and so sooner we get going, we can get through as much as the Schaffers have for us. So, again, welcome to Family Forum. The idea is that we want to help families grow together to Christ-centered. We want to strengthen marriages, families, and this is a great way of doing it, bringing in people with experience in certain areas and letting them teach for a night. And so we have asked the Schaffers to teach tonight and to bring an area of expertise to us and share with us. Most of you know Jay and Heidi, but Jay has been a deacon with us for a while, and he's taught before, and Jay and Heidi have taught other marriage and parenting classes that have been really well received, and so we were very anxious to have them teaching for us here. So with further ado, the Schaffer family.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So tonight I don't need that. I've got a lapel on. Thanks. Building a harmonious family and other unheard of adventures. So yes, harmonious. How do you get to harmony? Well, we're going to talk about that. We'll try to get there. Really, we're going to be relying on you to get there in some way, shape, or form. So we don't know everything. That's our disclaimer. What we do know is we know that we need to follow what God says, and we need to follow His word. Outside of that, my kid's acting up. Everything okay? All right. We'll go ahead and open up in prayer to start with. Dear Father God, I thank you so much for this night, and I thank you for everyone who is here, and I pray that you would bless them, Lord. I pray, God, that as we talk through your word and have your Spirit come here and be with us and teach us more than we ever can do in anything that we say. So, God, I pray that you would lift up everyone in this room to be honored and just move forward in parenting and family ideas. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Well, we're the Schaffer team.
I'm Jay.
I'm Heidi. And these are our 7 kids.
There's only 6, by the way.
Well, minus 1.
All right, so my name is Emmaus Schaffer. I am the oldest. I am 19, and I would attribute our ability to kind of get along to our close home relationship, kept a lot of teaching close to home, and our decision to homeschool throughout K-12 for me and for the rest of these kids.
So before Micaiah goes, the next one in line is Uriah.
He decided to opt out for work, so y'all.
So he's 17. He's, like Emmaus said, is at work right now. He's attending UW Stevens Point.
Hello, my name is Micaiah Schaffer, and I'm 15 years old. I enjoy being with my family because we like to talk to each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Beck.
Hi, I'm Zipporah Schaffer. I'm 11 years old, and I like to spend time with my family, and I think I get to spend time with them from homeschooling. I think a lot more than maybe other people do. And I like to play football with my dad and my brothers in the front yard.
Hello, I'm Cephas Schaffer and I'm 9 years old. I like my family because they're nice.
Hello, I'm Odessa Schaffer, and I'm 6 years old, and I love my family because they make good food.
And the little guy here is Thaddeus,
Say hi.
Hey.
and he's 2. So obviously he's not going to be introducing himself. All right, thank you guys.
He's a lot of fun. All right, you guys. Sounds good. Come here.
All right, you want to take a seat? Yeah, give that to Mace.
Stay with me.
Sorry, give us a second to get organized. So basically I just want to give a quick bio about us. We have been married for 24 years, 25 this June. So we're coming up on a big anniversary. So anyone want to throw us an anniversary party? I'm just kidding. Outside of that, we lived in Madison for 12 years. We've been in this area for 9 years now. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but we love living here and we love the people. So other than that, we'll go ahead and jump right into the slides. So there we go. All right, so I want to give an order to what we're going to be going through tonight, because each slide is set up the same way. You have them in front of you so that you can follow along, and if you want to take notes. At the end of each slide, well, let me start at the beginning. Each of the following slides contain a Bible verse, the biblical area that we're going to within it, the concept that we're looking for talking about, the practical things that you can do to achieve that concept, and then we're going to go to you. At that point, we're going to go to you for any questions you have, any answers you have in that area, any ideas that you have in that area. So the topics we are going to cover are going to be discipleship, teamwork, and legacy. And kind of what Casey was talking about Sunday morning, inside of these slides are what we believe, me and Heidi at least, are the rocks that are going to point the way to God as a family. So if you want to go ahead, we have a video for you. So if you can run that video, this is what not to be like as a family. This is going to church in the morning.
Fine. What are you doing?
It's dry shampoo. Do you think I have time to shower?
Why do you need that? Just wake up earlier.
Oh, maybe if you'd help me with the kids, I could bathe.
I do everything in this house.
Babe,
give
me
that
that
seatbelt thing drives me crazy. It gives me a headache. Can you buckle up, please?
Okay, maybe if you would do your job, I wouldn't have to.
Mom, Dylan's mad.
Why?
Why is he mad?
Because he lost his Triceratops.
Triceratops aren't even in
They're
the
not
Bible.
in the Bible.
Okay,
They don't
we learned
exist.
creation.
Here, put some of this under your eyes. Did you not get any sleep?
I got plenty of sleep. I'm fine. What?
Daddy stayed up playing poker.
Okay, enough. Play with the Barbies.
Can you please learn how to drive?
Listen, do your makeup at the house.
I don't have time. What is this, chocolate or poop? Baby, I'm trying to put my lipstick on. If you could put...
He's learning about David and Goliath. Just let him shoot, okay?
Throw that gun at
Mom, Dylan wants to watch videos on Dad's phone.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Tell Dylan that Daddy's texting and driving, and he can't
listen,
use it.
I'm navigating, all right? I'm on the GPS.
Okay, maybe if you went to church more, you wouldn't have to look up where it is. Can you stop hitting your brother, please?
I promise you, if I have to pull this car over, these spankings are about to be deep and wide. If your mother didn't have so many headaches at night, then maybe I wouldn't be such an irritable mood. Get control of your family.
Can you get control of the steering wheel, please? What is this? How long has this coffee been in here?
I don't know, since last weekend.
I don't care.
You're in charge of the kids.
Oh, I'm in charge of the kids?
I don't know, wives, submit to your husbands. Ever read that verse?
You ever heard the song, It Takes Two to Make a Thing Go Right?
That's not a Bible verse.
Sorry, kids, it sounds like Daddy needs a little N-A-P-T-I-M-E.
Okay, maybe Mommy needs some M-E-R-L-O-T again.
Where is Barbie?
Barbie's staying at home today.
Okay, maybe Barbie stayed at home because she put on her makeup at the house.
Maybe Barbie needs a new kin. But please, can I have that?
and you would have another baby?
We're not
Guys,
going to the playground!
Quiet, I can't handle it. We are going to church.
Well, I hope this sermon series is on patience today.
Okay, what?
You need it.
Come on, where is it?
Can you give me that?
Playground!
We're not. Okay, if you guys can act good for just 2 hours, we'll take you to Pizza Hut after church, okay?
Did you just bribe our children?
It's the only thing that works. We're about to go into church. Will you put your phone on silent?
Okay, maybe you should put your voice on silent.
Okay.
Hey, we're like 15 minutes late to church.
Should we just act like visitors and park in the front?
I don't know, we gotta put on our flashers for that.
Should we just drop the kids off and go to lunch?
Can we even do that?
We tithe enough, we should be.
Mom, Dylan said he has to pee.
Let him pee in his pants, I don't care.
We have the diaper bag, sweetie. It's the church nursery's problem. No, we're not watching Moana on the way to church.
On the way to church,
A
it's
little too
always
close to home.
VeggieTales. On the way home, you can watch whatever you want.
We literally don't care.
Why on the way to church is it always VeggieTales?
It's Christian.
All right, did that hit a
boy.
little too close to home? If you didn't find something in there that maybe you've done before, well, then you're not alive. So, obviously that is an example, not an example of a harmonious family. So why don't we dive right in? So, go ahead.
Yeah, and to back up, I know you've already talked about this. When we selected what we're going to talk about, it's really hard to find one facet of family to talk about. So we're doing this overarching thing. So this is going to be like drinking out of a fire hose a little bit, but hopefully there'll be a lot of things that'll resonate with you. So, first of all, the discipleship is what we're going to talk about first.
Right.
Yes, and this is the page. Correct?
Yep.
Okay, so. We're going to talk about training. There's something this is the one that's got
Start
the
with
triangle.
verse, sweetie. Verse.
Okay.
So where's the mask?
Amas, do you want to go out there? Somebody,
Yep. So we're going to
somebody
have
be able
you
to read
guys
the verse?
read the Bible verses so that are in your packet. Hopefully everybody can see them or look them up. So would somebody like to read the first one? Proverbs 29:17. We'll get you a mic. Hang on.
Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he grows older, he will not abandon, turn from, or depart from it.
So that parentheses there is a couple different translations. So
Right.
that verse has been quoted quite a bit. Most of us may know it already. So the way that we're looking at it today is training versus raising. This is something that's stuck out to me. The definition of raising is to bring something to adulthood. We do that with like farm animals. I think we have chickens at our house. But really training is actually to form by instruction, discipline, or drill. So that's really what you're aiming at doing with your kids. Not just getting them to adulthood alive, but actually training them so their hearts are correct. There's something that's impressed us even early on. We were blessed to have some information early on when we were raising kids. And this funnel, which some of you might have heard about this before if you've talked to us in different classes. And basically what it is if you have a funnel and you're correctly using it, of course, you're taking it and putting liquid into another container, you want to hold it so the small end is down and the large side is up.
Look at it in your packet if you can't read it.
Yeah. And looking at it in your packet, if you're holding it that way, the amount of freedom is actually the width of that funnel. And so what happens is oftentimes is people start out when their kids are young and they give them a lot of freedom. It's kind of cute. Kids are playing. They're playing with the remote. They're jumping on the dog. And it's kind of fun. You videotape it. You post it. But then as they get older, it gets a little less fun. And then when they get to be all teenagers, then parents are trying to put all kinds of restrictions on their kids, and the kids are fighting back because, hey, mom and dad, you let me have freedom up until now, while all of a sudden you're putting restrictions on me, and there's a lot of tension going on, and nobody's having any fun anymore. Versus the other way is to actually put restrictions on your children at a younger age and allow them to have access to the world, to things that they can control correctly. And then as they get older, release them, and eventually, of course, release them to adulthood so that they can control themselves appropriately then, and if that makes sense. So, I know there's always the terrible twos. You just met my 2-year-old. Yes, he should have constant supervision because he's 2, and he can be terrible, but the typical terrible twos, and even that teenage time, I know there's many times when we had younger kids, people would say, oh, you wait till they get to be teenagers. I'm sure we've all heard that, or maybe even said it. But really, both of those things are somewhat avoidable if we know how to do it. Most parents, if you talk to them, are not awful. They're not saying, I'm going to raise my children in any old way I want. Most parents really care, really want to raise their kids correctly, but they just don't know how. And that's, I guess, where we're coming from is parents are trying very hard and spending a lot of time and energy, but they just don't know where to spend it. So the goal, of course, like I said, is to release into adulthood as mature, God-fearing, high-character, unique individuals that are living out God's purpose. I wanted to tell you, this is more of a caveat, but the term teenager actually didn't even exist until 1944. Before that, the 1800s, people were married when they were young, and they transitioned pretty much from childhood right up until adulthood. Then in the early 1800s, or 1900s, I'm sorry, there was less child labor. People were going to school for longer. People are getting married later. So there was this kind of area where they weren't kids, they really weren't adults. And then add to that mix of the 1920s, I don't know the mobile industry real well, but cars were introduced, and it actually significantly changed the way that youth were treated, because now they had independence, they weren't supervised. Instead of during times when they were seeing or courting, it wasn't in their mom and dad's living room, it was out alone where they could be promiscuous, and there's a lot more freedom. And then it led to a point where in 1944, actually the marketing industry caught on to it and coined this term teenager. So anyway, just a little background, because sometimes there's that, in society today, there's that window where kids are kids, and then they turn 18 and magically they're adults. And it's a really hard transition sometimes if we don't release them slowly.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions to my...
Ton of info.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that back in the day, teenagers would court in the living room. Did I hear that correctly?
In the parents' living room.
In the parents' living room.
Yes.
I have never heard that before. I had always just heard either they can't do anything at all, or it's just very, like, with people with them, just not necessarily in their house. So I think that that's very interesting, because at least it leaves the door open so that they can. And what age do you think that would be?
Courting?
Yes.
When they're ready to be married.
Well, yes.
When would you court?
And this is very cultural. I'm sure across, there's very differences, but in, at least in our area, this area, if you would go back 100 or so years, yes, you would go into your parents' living room, probably around the time you were ready to be married. That means a man's pretty much ready to support a wife, and a woman is of married age. So this is not a game they would play.
Right.
This is the time when they were ready to get married, and they were quite serious at that point.
But careful here. This is a whole topic on its own.
Yes.
And we don't want to go too deep into it.
Okay.
But we can definitely follow up with you. Actually, a good resource for that is Casey Carey. We've talked probably an hour about this concept in general. So, yeah, we have similar views on it. But the idea of dating is a relatively new idea as far as the world is concerned.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, if anybody's been to my house, there's a lot of books. I just love getting good literature and good information. So if there's any, I've laid some of them out on the stage, but if there's any resources that you think I might have or questions about, you could borrow them,
definitely.
or I have suggestions. Because you can Google dating and get a lot of different things, and it might not be quality, or maybe
Good.
prefer to find out. So.
Any other questions on that? Aaron?
Hey, I would encourage, like right now, my current trajectory with Max and then later Selah and Janice is I would actually encourage them to not really date or see anyone, and then just sort of like work on personal goals, education goals, later on career goals, and get yourself established before you really do or really consider any of those other sort of things. Because when you have someone along with you, you may have a vision of what you want to do, and that person might not share that vision. So now you have to compromise what you wanted to do.
Right. And if you remember, kind of what Heidi was going off of in 1800s, people got married earlier. So, right, they didn't live as long, true, but they got married earlier, and if you got married earlier, you don't have that teenage years where you have to try to figure out the dating and all of that too.
I think that's really wise what you're saying, though.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. And there wasn't as much urban.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. All right.
So does anyone want to read the next page? It's Proverbs 29:17. Just raise your hand and we can bring the mic to you.
Anyone? Pick somebody out, Emmaus.
Discipline. Discipline your children, and they will give you peace, rest, or comfort. They will bring you the happiness, satisfaction, or delights you desire.
All right, so a content household. So what we're going to talk about here is discipline. So the first thing I want to mention about discipline is that it's time consuming. Trust me, it's time consuming. You can't do it fast. It can't just be pitched out there. You have to think about what you're doing when you're disciplining, and you have to go forward in a coordinated, organized way. All right, second thing, long-term gain for a short-term pain. Has anyone ever been sitting on the couch after an exhausting day of work and the child over there is doing something wrong? And you say, I just don't want to get up and do it. But what happens when we don't do it? They now see it as an acceptable behavior and they continue going. Exactly. They'll keep doing it over and over and over and over. So it is a long-term gain because with correct discipline, you won't need to go back and correct it again. If I didn't mention already, it's time-consuming. It's very time-consuming. Sometimes it can take, it seems, days to get through, months to get through certain character traits that are leading them down the wrong path. So I'm going to explain one more concept here, remorse versus repentance and restoring. So remorse. To be remorse is saying, I'm sorry I did it because I got caught. That's not what we're looking for in this. You're looking for repentance, which is, I'm sorry I did it because I hurt you. And what that does is it gets to their heart. So has anybody been doing discipline with a child, and you get to the point and they're like, I'm sorry. Yeah. So is that remorse or is it repentance? Right. So again, this takes time. I said it one more time. It's time consuming, right? After you get to the point of repentance, don't stop there. Now you have to go to restoring the relationship. A lot of times we'll get to that point and it'll be, all right, I'm sorry, I realize I hurt you. And then we separate and nothing is done after that. But really at the end of the day, just like us and God, we want to be restored in that relationship. So take the extra steps to go and restore the relationship. Does that make sense?
And this is not, I don't know how theologically deep this is, but for us at least, we don't hold the kids on our lap and get really physical with them until there's been repentance and forgiveness, because it's almost like God can't have that relationship with you until you've said you're sorry and been forgiven.
So the next topic is clearly define your punishments. We actually have a list, if you're ever in our house, on our refrigerator in the kitchen, for common punishments. If you lie, this is what's going to happen. Now, for younger kids, they can't read, right? So if they do it, of course, you have to do it in a different way. One of the things we did in these slides, in addition to having the concepts, is we put the practical things sometimes into age groups, because they really do fall into age groups. So for ages 0 to 5, be patient and walk them through. So again, it takes time. Have them commit to self-control. It's a gift of the Spirit. So, if the child is rolling around on the ground, you can't get to the point of discipline. Have them sit. If they can't sit, have them stand. I actually have gone to the point, the military personnel, I have them stand at attention, I call it, at times, and I'm pointing at Aaron, because, it's a matter of just being able to control your body. And when you can control your body, then we can continue with the conversation. Give them time. Little kids, they can't go from the emotion of, I did something wrong and I got caught, automatically to, I'm able to resolve the problem. So give them some time. We typically do 1 minute per year of age. And limit for young kids, baby-proof. Whatever, and it's not just baby-proofing your house, making sure they can't get into the cabinets, but if someone's having an issue with a young child going and grabbing chocolate chips out of the freezer, we don't have a 2-year-old that does that. Maybe the chocolate chips shouldn't be in the freezer. Or put them in a different freezer where they can be.
Or like a 2-year-old putting things in our VHS player.
Yeah.
Instead of, we thought of moving it, but we just decided to discipline him, because there's going to be other people's houses that are going to have VHS players, and so
Or a
ours
DVD
might be
player.
baby-proof, but theirs aren't. So he could learn to control himself.
Yep.
So
The last thing under that is we have a concept that you discipline with the concept of it's a tool, not a toy. So should a 2-year-old have a remote control? Probably not. It's a tool, right? So we say, is that a tool or a toy? A toy is played with to represent being able to have tools. They have fake hammers and things like that. But if I don't want my 2-year-old walking around with my laptop, that would not be wise by me. Okay? 6 to 12, bring peace and solve the problems. Focus on the sin, not the sinner. At that age, it's really important that we don't destroy them that way. What could have been and what should be. Go through how they might have been able to do it differently. So when they have the situation, they have the problem, let's replay this. How do we do it the right way? As they get older, again, you're freeing them up. Guide them, don't tell them. Is that a good idea? What do you think about the ramifications of what happened when that happened? In some kids, I'm not saying any of them that are in here, but some of them, you got to give them the freedom to fail. Because some only learn from experience. Boys have a tendency to learn from experience, as someone pointed out last week. Let them know you are there for them. At the end of the day, the goal is that in parenting, that they're coming to you for the advice, not that you have to push it down their throats. Any questions on content households?
So this is specifically our household, my situation with one of my kids.
I'm sure it's not.
Okay, so in regards to the teaching them to be disciplined, how do we know what's too early? Because I have a child that still literally screams at me because she can't have her way. And I have a hard time dealing with that. I just have to just walk away from her. And I feel like I'm not handling it right because I will end up just getting so mad that I have to just walk away. And
We'll get to some of that later, but
She does that with you.
yeah, she does it with me only.
I have a different approach than mommy.
can you switch mics? You want to say something?
So when that particular child does that, I have a different approach. I just put her in her pack and play in a room, close the door, and say, hey, when you're done doing this, you can come out. And now she comes out when she's done. I had to fight the fight because she'd come out and still scream, and I'd pick her up and throw her back in there. Just do it over and over again, and now she comes out when she's calm.
So you want to be able to have that young child have some freedom, enough freedom that they can scream, because that's what they're deciding they're going to do. That's okay, but it doesn't gain them anything, right?
I don't think it's okay because it's very loud, she has very shrill cry.
I get it, but
And I'm not putting up with that.
yeah, okay. It's time consuming. I get it.
It's time consuming.
I get it.
Why she doesn't do it with me anymore, because I put in the
Right.
sweat equity of throwing her in her pack and place, slamming the door, and saying, you can come out when you're done screaming.
The quick answer is they know earlier than you think. I honestly think that, like a lot of people are doing sign language now. We did it with our kids. Kids can understand before they can talk, meaning they're meant to hear and listen and absorb information before they can talk. And I think you know your own kids. I don't want to judge, but you know when a child is hiding something. And when they know the difference. And then you need to discipline them. I mean, that's just the way that it is. And I would focus on following up too. Like, hey, this is what when you're frustrated, this is how you can act. So,
Right.
Ro-
Any other questions? Okay.
Kind of bouncing off of that, one thing we've had to deal with our youngest, with some learning setbacks, I'll just say, because we never had him diagnosed, was trying to decide, is he really understanding the directive, or is it disobedience?
Yeah.
And then we were finally able to distinguish, he understands what this is, and then correctly discipline, or try to correctly discipline in that moment, and then have that patience that you're talking about of when you could just clearly see, like, I'm not understanding what the words coming out of your mouth.
Right.
And then, working through the meltdowns, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yes, I hear you all over. Because it was just like, but you're this old acting like this, where you're feeling as a parent where if I fail, but each kid is different in their development. So you have to give that grace, and it can be exhausting, but just sticking to the plan is the key.
You need to be consistent and stay to the same,
Method.
the right thing. You might not see the reward for a long time, or
And I heard you say something, I said it in a different way, but you clearly defined the punishment. Because you said, with this action, I know you're not ignorant to it, I know you understand, and therefore you need to be disciplined. Yeah, which, that'll come up later too, so. All right, any other questions? All right, we're gonna move on.
all right. Somebody want to read Proverbs 5:7? Just raise your hand.
Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say.
So this is basically talking about we're going to talk about how developing mature kids, like get to that point where we're listening to them. So you want to encourage their daily personal devotions, of course. And I think Victory actually does a great job kind of in getting them to be excited about doing that every day. And inviting them, I've seen it with my kids, I'll be helping them do devotions. I do devotions with them in the morning, and Jay does them at night. And having them do it, I'm sitting here trying to fluster through it and read everything. Let some of the older ones lead them, and they really take charge, and it works out good. Guide into mature prayer. So have everybody pray at a meal instead of just kind of skipping through having dad pray or something. And also one-on-one. With some of my kids that are quieter, the older ones, it's good for me to go with them after everything's quiet and just pray with them one-on-one and understand what's going on with them. Understanding their heart as they get older too is really important. And I have a friend, she has quite a few kids, and she loves coffee. And so I made this mention to her recently. I said, oh, you must have always loved coffee. And she said, no, not until my kids were like 16, and then I started forcing myself to drink it because at about 10 o'clock at night, she felt like her kids started opening up. The older ones, they'd come back from work or wherever, and so she was so dead tired. But she would drink a lot of coffee so that she could listen to them and see what's going on in their life, because it finally was downtime for everybody. And she goes, I was never so tired in all my life. But she learned a lot about them, and she was able to understand what was going on. So it's important that we think about that. It's very different than when they're younger. And spend time when they're available and open. Like I was talking about, nighttime works for us. And then what we do with our kids is I just came up with this idea within the last year to go on a date with each kid each week. Jay and I alternate weeks, and then one kid goes each week. So like Emmaus and you would go week, and then Uriah and I would go the next week, yada, yada. Goes all the way through. And at first I thought, oh, this will be a fun thing to do. But the kids really, really were excited about it, and I got to be one-on-one with them. So even if you don't have a big family, it gives you time to get out. And for the boys especially, I felt like it taught them this is how to treat your future spouse. Even my little 9-year-old, he opens the door. It's a special time, and everybody's like, and it seems like such a precious time. And every kid, I thought maybe the younger or the quieter ones would not be as excited, but I get more information from them.
They're the most excited.
They're very excited to go because they just get me or him. So that's been really good too, to get to know them. Anyway, so for the ages, we tried to break it up a little bit for you. When they're real little, just demonstrate maturity. That means they know what's going on. Mom and dad are fighting in the front seat. They're not dumb. They know what's going on. So I have a friend and her husband who were having an argument as they were going to church, and the little boy in the back's like, hey, stop it. God doesn't like fighting. Didn't you hear? And when 6 to 12-year-olds, have them understand biblical maturity. So bring them into the Bible. How does God relate to this? And then as they get older, up towards legal adult, have them figure out how to have a mature personal relationship with God, and how that really is going to infiltrate their decisions. Because I think God creates us, at least for me, very uniquely, because when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you make these huge decisions that are going to affect the rest of your life. For example, on my wedding day, I was great. I didn't shed a tear. I was so excited to get married.
Look what you got.
Never thinking though, you make these major decisions in your life, and I was very blessed, but God is going to give them the foresight to make these major decisions and not have some major ramifications later that are negative. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and once again, for us, I have some resources too. Like Case for Christ is a good book if your kids are kind of wondering or want something a little more to read about if they're on that bridge with Christianity, or do a Bible study with them. So.
All right, are there any questions on that topic? We're going to have to start not calling on you guys.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, in light of having a devotional, do you encourage, like, when everybody gets up in the morning, that you all together come together to just pray to start the day? Or
it's up to the family. So you want to be able to. This is a building scenario, right? It's not where are you today, and what can you implement now that will make it a little bit better. Don't try to bite it off and say, gee, we need to go through 3 verses of the Bible. We need to teach our kids, a full chapter once a week. We need to pray for 16 hours a day. You got to make it reasonable to start with. So one thing, and then go to the next thing after you have that down, and then go to the next thing. And you'll find 5, 10 years down the road, it's implemented. You've got this whole plan for yourself. And you do as much as your kids are gaining information, gaining the correct biblical knowledge, and, hearing the Word of God. Any other questions? Nope. Brian?
One thing that struck me is spend time with them when they're available and when they're open to talk. And I was kind of reminded that as kids grow up, certain ones develop or require more of your time, or you may have a connection with them because maybe as a dad, they're doing exactly what you know, maybe your boy is doing what you dreamed they would do. And then you forget you're also raising daughters or whatever. And so I think we always have to remember that we have to connect with all of them, even though some are easier to connect with, especially the dads to their daughters and then the moms to their sons. And don't miss those times.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I believe the dating thing where we rotate back and forth is a great thing, because then you're making it intentional. And I'm at least getting to know you, once a month or once every other month.
And it's kind of cute because she's seeing how a guy could treat her. Like when she had, or Zipporah went a while ago, and you opened up the back door because she had to be, it must have been Hadassah, in the car seat. So he puts her in her little car seat and shuts the door.
Go around, open the door for her.
But I think that's very true. There's some of my kids that I just naturally get along with better, and I need to make sure the other ones get attention too. So.
All right. Who would like to read Exodus 20:12? And then I need another volunteer for Proverbs 10:1. Oh, we got one table, both right there. Nope, you're going to do both there. Okay.
Exodus 20:12. Honor your father and your mother, so your life may be long in the land the Lord your God gives you.
A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother.
All right, so this concept comes from a sermon that I heard. Unfortunately, I can't give credit to Pastor Thompson for this one, but it was a good one on explaining the difference between obedience, respect, and honor. So obedience is submissive to the restraint or command of authority. Honor is to achieve or to have a good name or public esteem. Respect is to consider worthy or to have high regard. Okay, so really, what's the difference between them? Obedience is for that age 0 to 5. Okay, we actually have a saying in our family that for the younger kids particularly, you do it immediately, you do it happily, you do it without question, even if you don't know why. Immediately, happily, without question, even if you don't know why.
And they know that, and so if they're like, I'm being obedient, and I'm like, let's go down the line. You don't look happy. You didn't do it right away. Yeah, you didn't ask me a question about it, but you just told me you didn't know why. So you're 1 for 4. So it helps break it down instead of saying you're being disobedient, and that's so.
That makes sense? Okay. So honor is for that age 6 to 12. That is given authority. So again, and I'll go back to the verse, honor your father and mother, so your life may be long in the land of the Lord your God gives you. So what is honor? It's, again, something you're going to give to the authority because they are the authority. So in this sermon, what he went through is mainly the difference between respect and honor. I'll go through that in a second. So respect. Respect is a two-way street, okay? Respect is to the point that person A and person B both have to respect each other. When one is disrespecting the other, then it's natural that disrespect comes back. Does that make sense? So, why is the word honor in that verse? Do you have to be a great parent for your children to honor you? No. They honor you because you're their parent. They respect you because you're a good parent. You understand the difference? Okay. So we could talk about it more, but Why don't we just go ahead and open it up to questions? We'll go right there. So do you want me to re-explain it or understand that?
I think it gets hard as you get to have adult children where that falls, especially if maybe a parent has really been hurtful. And Mr. Harley would probably be really helpful in that area too, of knowing where, anyway, that's when it really comes up, I think.
Right. But you're honoring them for their position. Do you respect everything any official does? Let's say a member of Congress. Do you respect what a member of Congress does? Should you honor them for their position? That's the main difference right there. And why is the term honor used? Now, as a parent, and we're going to reach out to the parents, do you want to be honored or do you want to be both honored and respected? Right. So this is where you want to be able to respect them, especially when they get older, and that's that freedom, right? And respecting them, they're going to give you that respect back. At the end of that process, you know how you end up with adult friends? Have you ever had the challenge of, well, I just want to be friends with my kids? That concept would be wait until they're adults and then be friends with your kids, if you get what I mean by that. Because you have to go through the process, yes. Yeah. Right. So,
I totally understand what you're asking.
okay,
So
so,
I'll let him answer.
oh, you don't want to, you take the tough one? This was probably the hardest topic, so, and I knew there were going to be questions on it. So, respect. How do you get your kids' respect? Let me rephrase your question and make sure I've got you right.
How are you respecting them?
How are you respecting them so that that respect comes back? Have you ever been in a, do you have older kids or younger kids? 12 and under. Now remember, this is for mainly 12 and above, but you need to learn it so that you figure out how to do it. Right. So again, think of the funnel in that way. You're going to end up giving them more freedom. Is there anything that you can trust your children with? Pick up one child and give me one thing that you can trust them with. Cleaning the bathroom. Can you encourage? Well, it is. It's real life. That's what we're talking about here. So, cleaning the bathroom. Can you respect them for cleaning the bathroom? Can you honor or can you encourage them for the job that they did? As that portfolio of things that they do well grows, build up those strengths and guide them away from their weaknesses. Does that make sense?
But I think you're also...
And they will respect you for the fact of giving them the freedom. But again, remember, and I have it in here, the honor should always be with them. And the honor is not for us as parents, it's for them, so that they may have a long life.
I have a question. So how do you respect...
I can't ask questions.
I'm just telling because how can you respect a child that is being so obstinate?
Yeah, that's probably not the
insisting
place.
that they listen
That's
to
not the
you.
place to talk about respect. Then you're in obedience.
You are not on the same level as them, because we've had that
Right.
with kids that are insistent that you need to listen to me. You need to listen to me, Mom.
Right.
And that is not, you are,
So the
that is
question
not
there
what you're called to do.
is, are they honoring you? If they're not honoring you, you can't step to the next level. First you have to have obedience, then you have honor, and then you have respect. Does that make it more clear? Okay. I have to work on teaching this one.
Could you give an example, if you're willing to, from your own lives of one of your kids that's in the honor age range and respect age range of like just a real quick example of this is what happened and it did or didn't show honor and this is what happened and it did or didn't show mutual
So the
respect?
discipline part of it?
What's that?
The redirection or the discipline?
Or just like, hey, it worked. They honored me.
Okay.
Or, you know,
So do you want both negative and positive or just the
it's up to you.
Okay.
Negative's always more fun.
All right.
I have to tell you really quick, my
Go ahead.
5-year-old,
Yeah.
Every night she wants to know a story that she's never heard before, but it's real and it's about mom, and one that I was naughty and I got spanked. It's very exciting. So anyway.
Yeah. Every once in a
Naughty ones
while
are
she
always
does.
more
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So I forgot the question.
She's talking about honor, respect levels. And
Okay. So, and what?
And what, like a real example of maybe.
Okay. So if your child, say you have a 9-year-old boy that is yelling at you, and you're having an issue where it's just a scream fest with them, you're calm. Simple concept or a simple question you can ask him is, are you honoring me? If they understand what honor means, it's going to slow them down. Now, again, is that going to stop them? It depends on the kid. And some of these responses are canned because I know what I can do with my kids, with my 9-year-old. I know that he will stop if he were getting excited about something and I said, are you honoring? Are you honoring me? I know it would stop him. Now, respect, I can give an example with this guy, but all right, you won't feel bad about it?
Oh no, he's right there.
Right, there have been times in his life where we're up at night questioning, oh, I don't know if this is the right thing, but we pray about it and we find out, do we intercede, do we guide, or do we let him go out on his own? And I can't give you a better answer than that because that's going to be between you and God. Any other questions on that? I'll try to refine that teaching for
I don't know if that quite, there's so many examples. There's like electronics, I know that's a respect issue, like as far as we ask our kids to keep them in 3 rooms of the house, really. Those are the only rooms they can have them in. And we've had so many times. Oh, I forgot, I went upstairs, whatever. And so it's just that repetitive, okay, I'm going to respect you and I'm going to let you have enough device. But you're not being respectful to me because you're really not obeying the rules. So you know what? It's really going away. And so you're really putting a word in it and saying, hey, if I can't trust, really, I can't trust you. So next step we're going to talk about is teamwork, which is really, we have, if any of you have sent us an email, our email is goschafferteam@yahoo.com. And the reason that started is I was trying to get my little boys to clear the kitchen table, and it's such a, I don't know if you guys understand, it's such a simple task. You take the dirty food and you put it over there, and you go back and you do it again. And you do that maybe 5 times, and it should take maybe 5 minutes tops. And so after like 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going crazy, anyway, we decided to say, we had all boys, we'll do Go Schaffer team break. So we put all our hands in, okay, let's go Schaffer team break. And it worked. It was like just a start to like, hey, we're gonna do this. It's kind of like, see who can clear the most. And it worked really well, especially with boys, it seemed like. But as a family, you really need to function as a team as much as possible. There's such a, I think, a divisiveness sometimes that the enemy gets us all separated into our own selfish corners, and the house just crumbles. So 2 is better than 1. I'm just going to read the Ecclesiastes verse. It's Ecclesiastes 4, 9-10. 2 people are better off than 1, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. So Jay and I have different roles in marriage and parenting. I am very happy that God created there to be a 2-parent household. We're not doing this by ourselves. If you are a single parent, or if you feel like one parent is not helping as much, hopefully you have some support out there. Of course, you can always call on God, but the more you have that can help you with that task is better. Now, in a household, you've got 2, 3, 4 more sinful people all living together. There's inevitably going to be some messes. So the way to do that is chores and free time can be shared by the whole family. Now, for myself, I try to get really organized. You want to allow God to come in. You don't want it to be so self-organized and rigid. You want the schedule to serve you, not you to be serving the schedule. So, so you have an organization of your whole household. There's Stephen and Terry Maxwell actually are a really good couple, and they have some books that are very structured on how to get your household organized. But other things to do together as a family devotionals, and that can be, you mentioned sometimes I get real complicated too, trying to figure out which devotionals I should do in what order. Just getting together and reading the Bible. It's really, it sounds like that's very, very important. It doesn't have to be fancy. The other thing we do together is we do read-alouds together a lot of times. So we do a book and we read that afterwards. I have some up here that we have good classic books. And then a touch and a harmony between family rather than glorifying the discord. So if there's two kids that aren't getting along, then tell them they got to clean the bathroom together. And that's it. Or we actually have two kids that really are polar opposites, and we thought about taking them apart, but they're sleeping in the same bunk bed, and they're probably going to do that until they graduate high school. And they're like the worst roommates. But they're doing, I shouldn't say that, they would naturally. They've grown closer, and they are doing really well. The same thing with actually Emmaus, and he's got his brother that's 10 years younger. They share a room, and he's able to mentor the younger one, and that works out well too. So instead of thinking separately, there was a doctor that I worked with, and he had two daughters that were fighting horribly over the bathroom, and so he was a surgeon, and then one day he came in and I asked him about it, and he said, I fixed the problem, I just built another bathroom. And
not really the
he never had a problem again, but it probably wasn't the right solution. Anyway, you can read some things over here too, really in ages 5, getting pride in a team, that they're proud to be part of Schaffer team or Bickett team or whatever. Helping in chores, little kids can take a lot of pride in that. And then working on their self-control is really good too. I don't know if you talked about the 5-gallon bucket challenge.
No, this is actually.
We did not ask permission from the pastor that we heard from, so don't say.
This is Jim Curtis's, so.
We didn't ask him.
Anyone hear of the 5-gallon bucket challenge?
Okay.
So
anyway,
what it is you get a 5-gallon bucket, you put it on the floor.
I don't know if
this is, of course,
legal.
2 kids have been fighting. So they're arguing, they're complaining, they're almost at fisticuffs. All right, 5-gallon bucket challenge. You got to stand on the bucket together, holding each other, and you can't fall off.
You don't have to hold each other.
Well, you don't have to, but there's no way to stand on a bucket for 5 minutes without hanging on to each other. Inevitably.
The first time we did it, they were
it's
like,
laughter.
Really? But after about a minute, they're laughing.
Yeah.
And if they fall off, the time starts all over again.
But yeah, they
and
figured
we did
it out.
it just yesterday.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find a 5-gallon bucket, and we're like, we'll go out in the snow and find one because we're not doing anything until you do it. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
that'll work too.
That's an idea.
Right.
So it's really being a team, positive or negative, because we're in it together. Being hospitable together, having people over, that's really good. Mentoring younger kids, like he's doing. And so.
Any questions on that one?
One thing I wanted to say is for our week, this is important, I think we do it a lot. It works out because I have 7 kids and there's 7 days of the week, but each kid gets a different day of the week. So Emmaus is Monday, your eyes Tuesday, yada yada. And so that way they do their laundry on that day. So they have certain chores that personal chores they have to do that day. But then also they get certain privileges too. Like they get to pick out the movie or they get to go to the store. And so it's their day. And so even if nothing really big happens, they really like the fact that they have that kind of builds, and people can do things for them, buy them things or whatever.
All right, any questions on that? Gonna run. Okay.
Yeah, we put those Q&As because
we
thought if we don't have any questions, we'll go with those. But go ahead.
Life has slowed down for a lot of the extracurriculars, and you just there's not as much to do. But eventually, it's bound to pick up, or just as my kids get older. How do you find balance with that? I'm sure it's up to each individual family. But have you guys said, you can be involved in one thing, or how do you limit that?
We actually have a slide on that Can I hold off on that one?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that was a question.
It's okay. If it's okay, we'll cover it. Any other questions? All right, we'll go ahead and go to the next one. So, they are always watching. So, Proverbs 14:26, in the fear of the Lord there is strong confidence, and his children will have a place of refuge. Proverbs 20:7, the righteous man walks in his integrity, his children are blessed after him. By the way, if you want good child training, just go to Proverbs. The Proverbs were written for that purpose, or a lot of it was written for that purpose. You'll find a lot of them in there. So, training, first concept, training is caught, not taught. They're going to watch what you do, not what you say. They don't really care what you say, they care what you do. So you better be acting out the correct thing. Children need us to have integrity because the world's not going to have it. Okay? Where do we learn how to treat our spouses correctly? Or incorrectly? From our parents. That's the first place we're going to learn it. Now, you might go over to somebody else's house and see a good example or a bad example, but our examples as kids come from our parents, whether you want it to be or not. They are learning how to navigate life by watching us deal with our issues. Okay? So, so some of the practical things. Parents' marriage is a model for children's future relationships. There's too much to go through in marriage. We tried to focus mainly on parenting here, but we could go down a whole nother path in marriage. So if you have anything on that, just let us know. Another good thing is to bless your children daily. Typically, we divide and conquer. So I don't bless every child every day, but I try to bless 3 to 4 every day, and she tries to bless 3 to 4 every day to be able to get to them all. It's an important concept, though, because in this way, like it says here, you're blessing their future. So you're blessing your grandchildren, you're blessing their spouse, you're blessing the future generations.
One of my older boys, actually, he sleeps downstairs, and I'm upstairs getting ready for bed, and almost every night without fail, he'll come up and just be hanging out. And he's like, "Are you going to come down and bless me?" And so
I feel terrible because if I bless him, it's not good enough. He wants his mom to
no, I think
which
it's
is fine. It's their relationship, and that's awesome.
Anyway, I just think that's really nice that. Go ahead.
How do you do that?
Okay, so how do you bless?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I basically just give I pray for him and just bless him. But I put my hand on him and say, "May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance on you and give you peace." And so I say that blessing to him every night. And then I usually just pray for him and just kneeling and just saying, "What's on your heart?" Usually he has something really minimal. You know what? I don't know. I've been thinking about school, or he is really quiet. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that's not here. But
if you know what's going on in their hearts, you know what to bless them for. So if they're concerned about something, I'm being bullied at school, you can bless that, the fact that they're not going to be bullied, that they're not going to be put into that situation. You can pray that God is not going to, go down that road. Now, the difference between prayer and blessing, I'm going to leave up to pastor.
I would talk to Pastor Thompson or the pastors about it too, specifically. Right. To me, it's different. It's in addition to just praying for them. Like, I hope they don't get bullied tomorrow, Jay's really,
Blessing, my concept at least, and Pastor can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a blessing for the future. It's a blessing for who they're going to be. So it's not a prayer. You're blessing what is to come and into their life. Would that be the appropriate way to say it?
Okay. And that supersedes just as people too. I mean, it's your home too.
Okay. Do they see you in the Word and praying? So if you want them to have a biblical life, if you want them to have a prayer life, do they see you doing it? If they don't see you doing it, and for me personally, I have an hour commute each way. A lot of my Bible time, guess what, is in the car. I listen to the Bible on my phone, going back and forth. Radio has kind of lost it for me, so that's where I have my Bible time. But I'll talk about the things when I get home that I've learned that I've seen in the Bible, so that my kids know that I'm doing that. Plus, we have a devotional time later too.
And all of you are, the fact that all of you are here is terrific. All of us have different backgrounds, and some have things that we've learned that are much more habitual, that are negative. And so it's tougher to get out of that rut. And we were kind of talking about it before. So you have to really think about the fact that some of us are just going to have to try harder. Is that the best way to say it? So that your kids won't have to. So it'll be more of an ingrained thing for them.
Right.
So.
Any questions on that? Right.
I don't know how to say or explain exactly how this happens, but even things that they don't see, if patterns in your life that will come out in your kids. So even if they don't see you doing some things, but yet you're doing things you don't want them to see, those habits all of a sudden appear in your kids, and you thought they didn't, and you know they didn't see you. But so I just want to encourage people, not only what they see, but what you're doing when they're not watching, because in some way those patterns tend to come out.
Right. You're
And
absolutely
I can't really
right.
explain it, but it just happens.
It's very hard to hide your soul. Yeah. Nice.
So your kids are watching what you're doing, obviously, all the time. We know this. But how, and I don't know if you're going to cover this, but like, obviously, if you have a disagreement or you have an argument, like.
Marital.
Yes. Okay. Do you allow, how do you allow are you trying to hide that from them? Do you just try to keep it like?
My quick answer would be no. I wouldn't. Jay and I have we ever disagreed?
Yes.
We maybe it's because we homeschool and it's just like that's right there, like everything happens. I don't think that in general disagreeing in front of them, if it's something really personal or you need to talk to him more, one thing is if they see you fight, then they should see you make up. Because what happens a lot of times is Jay and I are like, da, 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 da. The kids go to bed and then we're like, oh, yeah, I'm really sorry, Jay. And he's like, yeah, I am. We wake up the next morning, everybody's happy, and the kids are like, okay.
What happened with that?
I guess that's how it works. They just fight and it's gone the next day. So make up in front of them.
Right. And I would put it on what we were talking about before. Let them see you repent. Let them see you restore.
But I don't think there's a problem with this learning how to disagree.
Andy's got a question. Sorry, Mace.
All good.
Or if
I'm
you do
teaching
make
him
a
how to be a
mistake.
deacon pastor. See, you run the microphone.
Is that what you're doing?
So I'm somewhat intimidated by all of the things you guys have in place and all the things that you're doing.
It didn't happen overnight.
My question somewhat piggybacks on Lisa's is on extracurriculars, but when society comes back, when our children start engaging in middle school, high school sports, and then there's all these things that we can and should be doing, and we have to prioritize those. If you had to pick one or two things that you are a must-do on a daily basis, what would you advise that we do?
I mean, as far as activities for you guys, I want to say something, if it's okay. You said it was
Yeah, we're running low on time.
This is something that I know Jay and I have talked about a lot, and people, this is just in general, this isn't parenting or anything. Why do you do what you do? You just say, why do I do this thing? Why do I end up, and then does it match what you believe? And so if you're doing it for a different reason, and many people, as juvenile as it is, I do it too, do it because, well, they're doing it, or I guess we're supposed to be doing it, and they're in this just,
Crazy cycle.
yes, it's just this mode of just kind of automatic autopilot instead of really thinking, why are we doing this? And sometimes there's things that are even being done by a majority of people in our culture or even our church sometimes that maybe we don't need to be engaging in. So if it's not right for your family, and if you're asking about extracurriculars, I mean, Jay and I have talked about that a lot. It's kind of a touchy subject, but in general, our kids don't do much. They don't do much of anything for if it's going to pull away from the family. Micaiah loves baseball. As much as that breaks my heart, there's a traveling team, and we told him, no, you're not doing that. And so that's our own decision, though. That's not something. But I do think you need to decide what's important to you, and then protect that. And if it's not, there was a lady I knew, and she said, whenever you have a question, should I do this, should I do that? She'd say, does it hurt my family? And if she'd say yes, then you don't do it. So if it invades on that core principle that you have, then why are you doing it? Am I saying that correctly? I don't want to sound too...
What is the most important?
What would you say?
I would say the most important is going to be direct, outright discipline, how you're disciplining. And a lot of it depends on what the age of the child is. And, time to talk to Jim and do a little counseling, because it's really hard to take and give one concept for every single family that's in this room.
I would say,
Because there are
family
a
Bible
lot.
time, you've said.
Yeah, that's
have
another
family
one.
Bible time would be a core one. If you're just going to implement something, meaning getting everybody together and read the Bible. And if you want to have, certain devotional and things like that, or do a read aloud afterwards. That builds family cohesion.
Right. Spending time together, having a non-interrupted family time that's just your family. That's very important. We get caught in the rat race, and everybody does it, where there's too much going on, and is this family that we created important, or isn't it?
What I know we've suggested to people sometimes is that if this is ideal, the husband and wife could take a day or two away, or whatever, take a couple hours if that's what you have, and have a family vision or mission statement. You always, and just what are we about, and that way you can build from there.
Right, because that way you get to focus, and
some
you can
people,
focus on what you really believe.
Yeah. So, and then you could take pride in that. Some people even build like a family crest or something.
Do you want to skip through to legacy?
Sure, that's fine.
All right. We're going to skip ahead a couple of pages.
This one.
I want to respect your time. So if we have extra time at the end, you want to do what? All right, go ahead. We're going to go to proactive teaching. If we go to that slide. I'll give Heidi one more. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. Next time we do this. So you can read the verse there. It's Deuteronomy 11, 18 to 21. So commit yourself wholeheartedly to these words of mine. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Teach them to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that as long as the sky remains above the earth, you and your children may flourish in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors. So
real quick, you look at this verse, and it's a lot of what we're talking about, what we just commented on, right? Everything you do needs to be focused on the direction of how you want your family to be, right? Not everything. Of course, you have to have your relationship with God. But if you're focusing on your family, for that time that you're on your family, you must focus and be direct.
So it's asking us to be the primary teacher, not feel like somebody else should do that. One reason I would do this is we actually do for Bible time, we've done verse a day, which I have books over there, a friend of ours. Most of what they do in there we agree with, and it basically is helping your kids memorize a verse a day. So you read the whole chapter, Then you start on verse 1 and you have them memorize it. The next, you read the whole chapter. Day 2, memorize the next, and by 30 days into it, they have 30 verses memorized. You might feel like it's not doable, but little kids are awesome. They can memorize a verse a day, and then they can repeat it all. It's crazy.
Our 5-year-old, right before Christmas, memorized Luke 2, the entire chapter of Luke 2, which basically went through the birth of Jesus.
So they don't have trouble, especially before they can write. I mean, you think about, oh, they can't memorize this. The other thing that we've done is Bible copy, which in the days of old, they used to have kings, and that would physically copy. And I don't know if I'm extremely visual in how I learn, and so if I write something down, I remember it a lot better than if I just say it or hear it. And so we've had our kids do that too and have notebooks. So I can talk to you more about that if you ever wanted to do it.
Anything else on that, or can we skip to legacy? I want to give people any questions on that, real quick ones? No? Okay. All right. I think I'm on. So next we're going to go through legacy, which is our plan for the future of our family, what we want it to look like. So the gift that keeps on giving, Psalms 127:3. Behold, children are a gift or a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. We need to remember this. Children are a blessing, a gift, and a reward, not a burden. Don't get caught in what the world thinks is important. Sports, friends, money, more from their perspective sometimes. But my friend gets to do this, they get to go there, but we're the Schaffer team. We want to focus on being the Schaffer team, okay? Time is our greatest resource. We brought that up before with discipline, but it's also with just spending time with them. If you don't spend time with someone, you don't have a relationship with them. It's just a fact. And take the teachable moments. If your child asks you a question, answer it. And take time in answering it. Don't just give them the pat, well, this is what I'm talking about. And again, Heidi brought it up before, but late night talks. A lot of this, what we're talking about, isn't necessarily something you're just going to build in. It's changing the culture of your own family. So it's taking the time to get through that. She mentioned the lady that she was talking about. Maybe you have to pick up the habit of coffee at 10 o'clock at night so that you can stay up.
Or for me, I'm not a real short person. I will kneel down in front of my little kids. So instead of bending down, I'm like, okay, what do you need? If you kneel down and get on their level, because I'm getting old, it takes a while for me to get back up, so I'm down there for a while. I'm able to talk to them a little bit and be like, what's really going on here? And they just eat that up. All
right. So some of the practical things you can do, dates with your individual kids, we've talked about that one. Playing sports as a family. We have a big enough family that we can have 2 sports teams. We can play basketball or we can do soccer or something like that.
Jay's always the quarterback, though, so.
And football, yeah. Well, I can't run that well anymore. So, board game night. So that's a big one for us too. Game night. If I say game night, I don't mean everybody on their phones. You need that interaction. You want to be able to have that interaction. Yeah. It's okay sometimes, but you got to have that game night too. So, vacation, right? Take a vacation. Be together as a family. Movie nights. Again, you're watching a screen, but if you know anything about my family, there's always commentary.
He loves it when you talk during the whole movie.
Right. There's always commentary during the entire movie, so it's more relational than anything. Having a formal dinner. It can be kind of fun. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a Seder dinner here. And, that's kind of the traditional formal family get-together for in a Jewish family. But it's kind of nice to sit down and say, okay, we're going to have a nice meal. We're going to have cloth napkins. We're going to actually pretend like we're civilized human beings. And it's a development, right? The peas go flying across the table. That happens. So, yeah. Attend a sporting event. That can be a big event for a child, right? And really, this is one of the reasons that we homeschool, because we want to capture that time. So, any questions on this one? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not all. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes the
Yeah. But you have younger kids. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
there is a little bit of that because the
That-
little kid.
That's a great point. When we had 2, I always said we were man to man. But as soon as we had 3, we had to go to zone. I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. Right.
Well, usually the
Yeah.
3-year-old's allowed to like roll the dice.
So our situation is a
Like, that's really
little
what
bit
happens.
different because the 2-year-old can be sitting on his lap, my lap, or her lap. The 5-year-old is sitting on a different person's lap. And then from 9-year-old and older, they're actually playing the game.
They normally help.
Right.
Find a movie to watch together that a 19-year-old and the 3-year-old can all be involved in?
Yeah.
Usually. We don't watch TV that much, so if it moves,
Right.
we're okay.
If you
That's
need
about
some
where-
examples, we can give you some.
Yeah, we can give you.
We go
really.
to a lot of older movies. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of unfounded good movies out there. Old Yeller has a sequel. Just found that out.
Yeah.
But
But great
you know
question.
that?
Your kids are all under the age of 12, correct? No.
But it is
16. Okay. Right, but they also have 7, right? Yes.
so yours are squished even more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll have to talk. That sounds like a. That sounds.
All right. Any other
It
questions?
is doable. If God gave you the kids, it wasn't accidental. So
That's
there's a way
the key
you can
right
do
there.
it.
Right.
It might seem impossible, but.
What seems impossible to man is always possible with God.
Right.
All right.
So, you want me to do
Yep.
this
Why
one?
don't we go ahead to the
So,
finish line?
The
Yep.
finish line is Proverbs 22:6. Train up on your child in a way he should go. Even when he gets old, he will not abandon, turn from, or depart from it. So a legacy, if somebody hasn't heard that word before, it's the goal of parenting. It's to something that you leave to future generations. So children have eternal value. All this other stuff we have is really stuff. We all know we're not going to take it with us. But the children, hopefully we are, and that we will see them.
And our grandchildren.
And our
And our
grandchildren.
great-grandchildren. And our great-grandchildren.
So, we can kind of, by looking at our family history, like photos and videos and stories, we can remember that family history. And we'd also remember that grandma, remember, she always put memory verses on her refrigerator, those sorts of things too, and learn to care for that that's important. People are important. And think about future, that we're not going to be here. Prioritize the kingdom of the Lord, of course, and then these rocks that Jay and I were both really stuck with us from Pastor Carey's sermon. It's in Joshua 4:1-7. For our descendants to remember what's important to us after we're gone. So those are things that we did that they remember about us. So, I guess I would challenge you guys all to think about in your head. I have it down there in the Q&A too, to think about what your mom's name is, what your grandma's name is, what your great-grandma's name is, your great-great. After just a couple generations, you forget something as basic as somebody's name that's in your family line. How interesting that I honestly, my great-great-grandma, I don't know her name, my mom doesn't know her name, and we can't find, and so I would challenge you to that in a couple of generations. I'm okay if they don't know the name Heidi, but if that legacy hasn't trickled down about the Lord, then that's not good. That's something that I want, and they won't even know. I won't get credit, and I don't want to have credit for that was something that came from us. We want to keep that going. And I've seen in generations, maybe you have too, my mom and her sister have lived two very different lives, and in that one generation, they've made a big difference in how I was raised and how my cousin was raised has turned out very differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So we can really change a lot.
In one generation.
In one generation. And then we'll have multiple generations after that.
All right. Any questions on legacy? No. Okay. So hopefully we were able to cover some of the parts of family harmony here. You know, again, the whole point here, going off of, yeah, I will at the end, but commenting to what the Elgersma said, this isn't, we don't do this perfectly. We're telling you the things that we learned to try to get to that point of harmony. And that's why it's a journey. This is all a journey as a family. If your kids can see that with grace and they can see it through their own lives, that's the purpose, to get them to the end and to make this generation better than your generation. And then the next generation, and the next generation.
And what I said before about figure out what's important to you and what's your priority. And then it might cost something. You might have to give up some things, but just make sure you protect that.
Right. I want to leave a little bit of time here for questions. So does anyone have any questions?
I was afraid to ask it.
Oh, no, feel free.
I feel like I have too many questions.
no.
I
Oh,
really
no.
do.
That's good.
Okay, so is there, when I see you guys, I think that your kids just don't ever argue, and that's not how it is in our house at all. I mean, it's nonstop almost. And so I just thought, how do you do that? Like, how do you teach your kids not to be that way?
Right.
How
How
do
to
you
argue?
not
That's easy.
argue?
They just do that. So you're asking how to stop the kids from arguing?
Well,
Well,
no,
how do you have a
I'm asking,
household so
how
that
do you-
there's not discord in it? Is
Right.
What you're asking.
Yes.
That it's characterized. For example, if you had an unexpected guest come over and open the door, what would they find? Would they find a bunch of kids that are barking at each other? You know, do you change your voice when you
Sometimes,
answer the
yeah.
phone? That sort of thing. So as far as that, it's nipping it in the bud, recognizing that that's not appropriate to be talking that way to your sister, let's say, but then on top of it, trying to nurture
And
them
correct
being
and redirect.
together. Like, you know what, I think you guys should do the dishes together. Or you know what, for supper tonight, you're actually gonna bring her everything she needs for her meal.
That is
Like,
something.
you know what, if
yeah.
she needs the ketchup, you're gonna put it on her plate. And if you put too much on, you're gonna go get her a new plate. I mean, it's gonna be really, that can be kind of mortifying, but you want it to be comfortable too. Like, why don't you two go out and jump on the trampoline together? You wanna nurture that, but you do wanna nip it in the bud. It's not okay to be arguing like that. That's not acceptable. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yes.
I have the same voice.
You've had to, with your many children, gone through this situation of not being able to identify what the problem is with that child. Like I'm in this gray area with a couple of my children, and I've only got 3. 2 out of 3. And I'm just like, I don't know what it is, but it's causing frustration, it's causing dissension, it's causing irritation with the other siblings, whether obviously it's a character thing, but I can't figure out like what it is, because I'm like, I'm not a psychologist, I didn't go to school for this stuff. I can't identify what that is.
I'll tell you, if you say it to a boy, like, well, what's wrong with you? I've tried that.
Doesn't work.
They don't know,
Yeah.
and they won't answer, and even if they did know, they only have a certain number of words in a day, I think, or something. But anyway, if you do a task with them,
Yeah.
like he was
So-
fixing our horse door, which actually was
Yeah.
a big,
It's one of the slides we missed. I'll go through that though real quick. So men particularly, and boys and men together, we interact side by side. We prefer to be like this. Girls prefer to be face to face. It's just the way it is. You sit with a guy like this and just have a conversation, they'll open up. I guarantee you. For a guy and a guy together, you're doing work together. Oh, we got to fix this door. We got to replace a hinge, whatever it is. You know, can you hand me the screwdriver? Oh, what's going on in your life? You know, what's happening with that? I saw that was going on. You know, how did you deal with that? You can just have the conversation and start opening. Okay.
Almost like they're being disruptive or.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can we follow up with you after? Because we'll.
Yes, because we have our kids' church and our nursery workers. So, how many people learned something tonight? All right. How many people feel a bit overwhelmed right now? Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what. Let's just give the Schaffers a hand for all their. I just want to pray to dismiss you guys. Here's what, because I know if I was on the front side of parenting, I know I would just my head would be spinning. But here's what the Family Forum is about. The Family Forum is bringing resources from within our church, making them available, things we can talk over, and Jay and Heidi are a resource for you guys. You don't have to do it perfect. I would have the same question Andy had. I would have the same question Matthew had. But we don't have to do it perfect. All we want to do is make small steps in the right direction, trusting God, and Jay and Heidi are a resource. Last week, Jim Harley talked about finding peace and joy in chaos. Next week, Carrie and I are going to be talking about doing life with young adults. But we will be resources for you guys. So as you're in this journey, we want to walk alongside of you. So don't expect to make it right tomorrow, but we can be part of the process of what we're trying to accomplish here in Family Forum. So let me pray and dismiss you. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the Schaffers. I thank you for their wisdom that they imparted on our church family tonight. Lord, I pray that these truths, Lord, would become real. I pray for our children and our grandchildren, Lord, that you would work in their hearts so that your family could be more harmonious. Lord, so please instill in us, in our hearts, the truths that you would have us change. Some will change tomorrow. Some may not change till next year. But prioritize them for us. Thank you for this teaching tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. So if anybody has family members that have young adults, it could be grandchildren or grandparents. The book we're taking it mostly out of is by Jim Burns, Doing Life with Young Adults. But if you have friends that are struggling with how to do life with young adults, or maybe that's coming down your pipe, bring them to class next week. I think it'll be worthwhile.